had a staff and, I trained them and all that stuff. And I got on the phone every day, a couple of hours. You got to show them that you can do it too. Get yourself a resource or establish a path, a workflow of preemptive. Do things before everybody else to get something that nobody else will get. You could find a magic wand and just look into the soul of people and find the most coachable ones. Stick with those. You know where the problem is in the sales world? There's the VP here, there's the reps here, and there's the manager in between. And poor manager is always squeezed doing 50,000 things. So what becomes a priority? Whatever the boss says. So if a boss is smart, you'll say, take care of your staff, they'll take care of your customers.
What are some of the reasons why companies don't do practice and offer enough practice to their reps?
I remember
Hello everyone, Michael Ocean, CEO at Selling the Spin here. I'm excited. I have my great friend Denis Champagne on the call. So Denis, why don't we just get started? Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey, and let's rock and roll.
Well, sales has been a big part of my life. I was a professional athlete before that. And when I was 16 in high school, actually, I sold appointments for selling furniture. That was an interesting, we were sitting very comfortably in our sofas in the store. And that was kind of my start in getting on the phone. My parents talked all the time on the phone. They were shakers and movers in the community. So I had that kind of service-centric kind of promoter, rainmaker kind of guy on the phone, So I wasn't afraid. I think that was the biggest thing. And a lot of people are afraid when they sell there. They work from fear, not from joy, So that was the first start. And then later on, after my career in sports, I got into telemarketing, selling office products. I was the manager. I was killing it. It was massive in the 80s, massive. And then in the 90s, I had a call center myself, selling advertising. So fundraising for charity and advertising for schools all over the country. So that was fun. It's called Campus Publications at the time. And, I had a staff and, I trained them and all that stuff. And I got on the phone every day, a couple of hours. You got to show them that you can do it too. Because when you are in the upper ranks of a company and you don't do any selling, like I have a guy I coach right now. I'm his executive coach. And he's a bit wishy-washy, and he wanted to leave the company, a huge food and beverage company in Canada. And, he's been there for a long, long time. And, he said, I want to go on my own. So I said, let's work on your plan, what you're looking in the industry and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, he took on a job in sales he never sold before. And he's a sales director for the whole province, but he's never sold before. But they just put him there because they don't want to lose him. So sometimes, these people need help. So what I do is I coach sales reps individually for, prospecting top of funnel. I help the managers manage properly and not get overwhelmed by the demands of up on top, as well as helping the reps, and talk with the VPs because they need forecast accuracy as a measure. And it's a big thing because they have to justify that with the CFO and the CEO, right? I help all three levels and I see all these things going on and it's fun. It's I become a sounding board for the CEO and the VP and poor directors. They're always sandwiched between the VP and the bottom rung of all the reps. So it's a very enriching period because I've been through all these three levels. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now, and I lift heavy weights, as you know, and I stay healthy.
Pretty cool, man. The funny thing, Denny, you mentioned about so many things right now. You work with different seller personas within the go-to-market, and it seems like when you join a company, you're not only a consultant, it's just like a fractional CRO type of, I would say, activity when you work with everyone from the top executives on, to the ground up when you work with the sellers on prospecting and top of funnel, aspect of things. So let's just have a conversation about your perspective of things that, have changed in the past 30 years. So I want to get a big picture first about sales organizations as a whole. Like what you've seen changing years over years. It's been 3 decades of you being in sales and helping companies, owning your own company, being in sales yourself. What's changed?
Well, let's see what hasn't changed. The phone hasn't changed. Let's start with that, because a lot of people look at the change, but they haven't looked at what has not changed. And they tried. They tried their very best to try to get away from the phone. Why? Because it requires confidence, it requires guts and courage. Today, there's so many tools to mathematize, to calculate, to quantify, right? But yet, very few people use the data and actually use it intelligently. So I think there's a lack of an analytical maturity. There's too much dependence on all kinds of things, but it dilutes the effect instead of being very focused. Because at the end of the day, I think that now people actually enjoy talking on the phone more because they're not talking enough on the phone. So I found that to be the case. If you do a really multi-tiered approach like email, SMS, LinkedIn, it's been shown that when you send an email, they're likely to respond to the email more than before. It's not a cold email. There's a warm up because a couple of other actions that were taken on your part to reach out to them that multiplies the effect, that amplifies the effect, so that they're likely to say, "Well, the guy's trying to reach me in 3 ways. He must want to help. He must have something to say. Maybe I am kind of narrow-minded if I don't take that call. Okay, let me take that call, right? Or
Mhm.
respond to that email." So the power of the combo approach, as you know, I appreciate the pattern interrupt approach. And still to this day, a lot of people are saying, "Well, I sent an email yesterday, and I'm waiting for a response." Oh, wait, you're going to wait a long time. You know, get on the phone, get on the LinkedIn, leave a video message. I have a client I'm working right now in the logistics. They're the largest logistics next to Canada Post in Canada. And he did video. I said, do a video on the application of the LinkedIn on your phone because it's very personalized.
Yep.
He sent out four, three of them responded. Three of them. Like, how many times do you get 75% response on anything, right? So, and he's engaging them in conversation. They see his face now, they've heard his voice. Video is very powerful if you use it as, combined with other things. It's not one thing that makes it, it's a combination of all those things. And then on top of that, I would say your attitude and your poise and your grace and your maturity and your confidence. And it's conversation based. You just engage with people. This podcast was saying that a couple of young ladies and young guys they did 400 or 500 calls a day, you know, but they learned something from it. And then they tried another 400, 500, but their win rates were higher for appointments and they learned. Um, that takes me to a particular story. There was a professor in arts that gave someone plasticine. So they said, you have X number of pieces of clay, and you have to make the most beautiful piece of art. And then the other one, they gave him all the plasticine that he wants. He wasn't given a limited amount. Who do you think made the most beautiful piece?
The one who tried more and
The
screwed up
guy
more.
who had unlimited supplies because he made more mistakes and he ended up with the most beautiful piece. So it's like, you could say it's like axing the tree, but then sharpening your axe. He's always
Mhm.
sharpening his axe. Likewise, in professional sales, there's so many things to learn, so many skills to develop now, so much, what I call adaptability quotient. You got to get all kinds of things right. And it takes time to practice. I mean, you're not a chat GPT expert, but you can leverage the use of chat GPT to give you insights. And then please create a human based kind of conversation that comes from you. Yeah, just be real and care for what you want to serve the person with. And that's going to take you a long way in the long run, not in the short term.
That's very interesting, and you shared a lot of things, and I have a lot of questions. But I wanted to, start with saying I agree with you. Omnichannel is the way to go, because people, want to be reached out differently. Someone might answer the phone, or just engage with you on LinkedIn? Or in terms of like effort perspective, though, I want to challenge it a little bit, because you said when people say you reach out maybe in three different channels, they might say, okay, the guy maybe has something, to share, and I'm going to answer back. Look, I have the title of CEO of a tech company and we are scaling, and I receive many, many emails and messages on LinkedIn, especially. So just to agree with your point on calls, I barely receive cold calls. I sometimes receive a few, but I receive a lot of messages because it could be easily, automated through AI right now. So you receive a lot of emails, you receive a lot of LinkedIn messages, and I think the goal should be to be able to personalize this, but then you lose the scale side of things. So one of the things that I'm actually testing right now, I'm testing outbound. So I'm going through this exercise to see what actually sticks and work. So when I personalize and do a good research on the account and be more relevant to their today's problems and challenges by looking at the signals that I'm tracking, then I get a better response rate, obviously. But the challenge is scaling it. So then AI comes in place, but then you lose a bit of human touch. And whoever claims that it's going to be like human language, it's going to be perfectly written. I tested a lot of AI tools, and you still can sense that it's AI written, even if your prompts are absolutely spot on. So what are some of your takes on that? Like, how should we still be relevant and personalized and timely, but also have the scale? Because many people don't answer their phones right now. I do cold calling. I do cold calling every single day, and the biggest hurdle for me is not being able to have a communication, have a conversation with someone on the phone, is to actually getting them on the phone, because nobody's answering the phone. So, what are your suggestions on that? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you used the word scaling. So let's talk about that for a second. Do you want to scale? I mean, everybody is into the volume thing. The more, the better, right? That's the adage that we've been adopting for decades. The more, the better. Sometimes less is more. So, I'm much more at a place now in my career where I prefer to have great clients, but few that I have a really good fit with, and they renew. One of my clients has been renewing for 3 years. I had one of today, 18 years he's been my client. So I think that a true client of yours is someone who reorders a second time from you. So you don't take it for granted that he's with you once. When he reorders from you, that's a true client. That's one
That's
thing.
absolutely correct.
That's one thing. So, there's difference between money and happy money. Like everybody's quantifying dollars. I was on a call this morning with a guy who was Moroccan, actually, an amazing entrepreneur. He's got 12 companies. He's written billions of dollars, and he was on the streets. He was homeless for 3 years, right? So, an amazing individual, and all he's thinking about is not scaling, delegating, right? So instead of doing it all yourself, like I know you're a smaller team right now, but maybe you need to delegate to someone. And the idea of earning more and getting more, it actually sometimes impedes the efficacy and the quality of your build because you're building your foundation now. So you don't want to, forsake foundational strength at the expense of expeditious revenues that are coming in fast. So scaling, yes, but maybe it's not the right time to scale for now. Can
Mhm.
you actually handle the increase? I used to do a lot of SNOP, sales and operational planning, right? A concept that actually sees how the harmony between the demand and the offering, and are you able to support the offering?
No, I really love what you're saying. And I want to put my specific use case aside because, again, early stage startup, to your point, if you have, high churn and you cannot retain clients, you really damage your, reputation, and your brand is everything, because you want to be able to serve them, not only just to get the money, but just to get the feedback, to get the referrals. And then the whole idea is to get the product market fit in a niche that you can actually not only serve, but build fans, people that really love you and want to work with you. And then yes, you get top of funnel inbound leads, you get referrals, and that's pretty much how we build 70% of our leads come through word of mouth and referral. Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, you just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails. These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With Sell Me the Spend AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at sellmethespend.ai. But what I'm trying to understand here is, you mentioned it yourself as well. So when you do volume, when these young people on the podcast, they were calling like 300-400 leads per day, they might make mistakes, but they learn. And at the same time, we need that volume to be able to reach out to people, because what I know and understand is like only 5% of buyers out there ready to buy. The rest, maybe you build awareness by being out there, by reaching out, by educating them, by saying, hey, we exist. Some of these challenges that you are facing, we potentially can help. Maybe the timing is not right for you. So what I genuinely believe is this: really depending on your ICP and your type of offering. So if you are more transactional, you definitely need the value. But yes, if you're working on enterprise deals, you have more stakeholders involved, that makes sense to even do the unscalable and be really sharp focus on, account-based selling and understanding each account, and be more targeted and more focused. Then volume maybe does not make that much sense. But for more transactional, for companies that their ACVs be just a little bit lower, I think, scale is still needed. And this is one of the main challenges that, at least in B2B SaaS, we are seeing right now, that because there are a lot of noise out there through all these AI generated emails and LinkedIn messages. Right now, we are talking about AI SDRs doing cold calls, which is a horrible thing in my idea, at least for now. By the time, again, it gets to the point that it does a fantastic job, to me, that's totally fine, because it sends the message. And if it's relevant to the client, the whole idea is just to make them aware about what's available rather than convincing them that I'm the best, person in the room. But how should we, for now, that again, AI is not to the point that replace salespeople? How should we as salespeople have the balance between value and personalization? What are your thoughts on that?
In my team's methodology, which we haven't addressed, my first letter of the team's methodology is T, and T for targeting. And the first target that I focus on is the actual rep, so that they're taken care of. They're looked after for their own motivations. So there's two kinds of motivation. There's intrinsic motivation, there's extrinsic motivation. And none of the employers ever take 5 minutes to ask, what is your intrinsic motivator? Why are you here? Gary Vee talks about that, like saying, I have an employee who's right now, he wants to make as much money as he can and work 7 days. Whilst he gets married, all of a sudden he wants a kid. His priorities have changed. So I have to kind of adjust and adapt to that to make him happy and give him what he wants while keeping him motivated, right? Personalizes that is really considering the actual individual situation as it relates to his workload and his personal life. So that, because sometimes executives, they're just there to protect the job they have. They may lose that job if they don't make the right decision. So a lot of them, that's personal to them. That's relevant to them. Maybe not to the company, but to the individual. But at the end of the day, it's making sure that the client feels that you understand them. They feel understood, they'll give you a time of day. If you're serious and say, I know you're probably very busy, like a lot of us are, and let's say you're in the expeditious process. Well, I know Canada Post is probably grinding your teeth right now because, for example, with my client UPS, they're going crazy right now, in FedEx, because there's some serious issues, right? So I'll bring that up right away because it's relevant to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's hitting them right where it hurts. And let's talk about that. Like you go to the doctor, he's going to say, where is everything that's feeling good? He's going to say, where is it hurting? Why are you here today? It's like a diagnostic, general diagnostic to get specific and get individualized.
Danny, you actually answered my question and you answered another question I wanted to ask, but you did it. So, what I'm getting from this is personalization comes through two things. First and foremost, are you relevant to your buyer persona? Can you, help them in their role? Can you make them feel good? Can you talk about their current challenges? And also, you talked about something really important is about your sellers. Do you understand why they're even doing this? Because if they're not happy, if they don't have a good vision of what good might look like for them to achieve personal goals and get closer to their vision, then they're not going to take care of your buyers. They're not going to take the time to really care about that buyer persona, learn about them, learn the language, because they're just there to do the job. So I completely agree with you. But I want to get a little bit more tactical about the buyer. So we will talk about the seller in a bit, but let's talk about the buyer. You talk about the buyer, persona, and you had a very good example about Canada Post and UPS. So this is a signal that you noticed. You are educated about the problem. You know what they are going through, so you have relevancy, and you reach out to that account or that company. And by being relevant, you already did your pattern interrupt that you mentioned early on, because most people are not relevant. Hey, I have this that can do this and that for you, but I noticed this that you are having this challenges with UPS or whatever it might be. So there are again multiple different signals. Hey, you're hiring, your quota attainment is low, etc., etc., etc. How should we do this at scale? Again, if you are a well-established company, no, I'm not talking about early stage startups when we are very targeted. We want to build a use case. We want to get to product market fit. But when you scale, when you have a sales organization with number of reps, at some point, again, if you are not necessarily selling enterprise, even with enterprise, because there's so much noise out there, you still need the value. That's what I truly believe. You want to be relevant, but you need to have the value to be seen. First and foremost, let me ask you this: do you agree or disagree with this? And if yes or no, why?
Well, I'm currently right now this week actually I just started a mandate with a client
Okay.
because everybody is running after their tail in Q4. Um, so I told my client, I said, why don't you hire someone or I'll do it for you, which ended up being the case that I am going to do it for them. They gave me a list of 70 very high profile, high CPG or consumer packaged goods companies. So that's 1 month, which actually translates in 2 months because by the time you get everything done properly and they can get it up the ladder in the grapevine of the company, it's going to be February, March. By that time, you're not your first quarter, you're just running after your tail instead of taking December, adding a resource that's competent in that area, and calling on potentially new prospects that you got in your pipeline that are not completely vetted yet, and establish a rapport and start building for January. So I'm coaching the rep and I'm doing the work for the rep. Like he's very lucky he has me. But this client's been with, I've had this client for 3 years. There's a good synergy, there's a lot of mutual respect. So the idea is to get preemptive. Everybody's waiting in January to do this. I said, let's start before everybody and slam it, like really slam the calls and get out there and be in the forefront. So when you call them or you have a conversation with them in a book meeting, even if it's 15 or 30 minutes in January to get the ball rolling. So get yourself a resource or establish a path, a workflow of preemptive, do things before everybody else to get something that nobody else will get because you've done something that they haven't done. That's just one tactical kind of way. Always be a little bit ahead of everybody else, even if it's 3 weeks a month, right? And it catches up with you because, the CFO, he looks at contact to cash in the bank account, the whole cycle, right? Um, the controller will look at the receivables turnover Like, how much time does it take for that receivable to come in, right? In the mathematics, so that on the 31st of December of next year, how much cash can they predict there will be available? So as a salesperson, you're a little bit ahead of the game. You're a bit faster, a little extra foot of plunge to do your high jump, or the plunge for, lifting the bar. If the bar is ahead of you and not mid-foot to your body, you're not going to lift the bar. It's impossible. Same thing. So
Interesting.
positioning.
Then this is really fascinating because there are a lot of leaders and coaches out there who, really focus on theory. This is the script, this is how it's been done, this is the video, just go do it. But it seems like you really get hands on, you pick up a phone, not just to earn your reps' respect, but just to show them how it's done. So it's a combination of like coaching in real time, sort of, that reps can see it, see the objection. So first and foremost, you kill that fear of calling. Look, I'm doing it too. I have 30 years experience. I still might get rejected. I still might, do a fantastic job in communicating the value proposition, talking about the challenges. I might get rejected. Not everybody's, our clients, and we are not for everyone, and we have to accept this. And also, you show them how it's done, so they can ask relevant questions right away in real time. So right after the call is done, hey, why did you do that? How did you do that? Why didn't you do this? Now, I wanted to ask you this. Based on your experience working with clients, how would you go about helping senior leaders adopt this mentality or this framework that you have to work with your people? You shouldn't just be from the above and saying, hey, do this job. Because I get a lot of clients that sometimes they come and say, ask this question. So, what are the problems that your reps are facing? They just don't do enough. But would you get involved and you do enough just to set the tone or not? How would you coach them to basically do what you're doing?
Well, usually the clients I have already have that mindset.
Hmm.
Otherwise,
So you vet them.
they wouldn't be my client.
I love
So that's the first thing.
it.
So
Hmm.
I rarely have that problem. Where I see the challenges sometimes, to be honest with you, I'm at a point now in my journey in the sales coaching world is finding coachable
Hmm.
reps. And I'm focused now on, is he or she coachable?
Hmm.
Am I going to waste their time and waste my time, and most importantly my client's money that pays me to do the work, which will bring to no end? I would say to people, if you could find a magic wand and just look into the soul of people and find the most coachable ones, stick with those. One of my clients right now is actually in recruitment of two other reps for the new year, and they don't know what a good rep is. A lot of reps do their best pitch during the interview.
During the interview.
So, what do you know? Like, are they disciplined? Are they, conscious? So I'm at a place now where it's not about just doing a blanket thing. I'm kind of consultative at the same time, so I want them to get the maximum render and delivery on their dollar with me. So now my model is, who are you two greatest salespeople? Give them to me. We'll make them better, right? And the prices law says the root square of a team produces 50% of the volume at least. So work with the best and make them better because they're already there.
Look, that's a luxury, Denny, that you have, that you're in the power seat of choosing who you want to work with. It's like the way we do. We don't have to serve everyone. Maybe even the budget is there, the need is there, but when we look at cultural fit and what we are trying to achieve, do we want headache for money or for the brand recognition, or do we want to work with someone for a long term? So then you can choose who you want to work with. I think that's the beauty of owning your own business, working on your own gig. um, I have a question based on your experience, not only for today, because I understand right now you're at the point that you can make this decision. But for companies out there who got a sales team of, let's say, 100 people, yes, you have your high performing reps, but based on what I'm hearing, the investment should go only for those. How about those up and comers or the struggling reps? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I believe that everybody deserves a chance. I want to give a chance to reps. I want to give a chance to everybody who's there. So maybe the way you recruit them and you hire them, ask some other questions that you haven't asked before, like why you're here, why are you here? You know, funny enough, the millennials are really the kind of core population in the business world right now. They're the new CEOs, and then it's no longer the 55, 65, 70. They're retiring now. And so you'd have to ask a millennial CEO, but what I'm seeing is they're very bright. There's a lot of bright guys out there. But yeah, I work with young ones in the sense of experience in sales, right? They're young, they're babies in the world of sales, and give them the right foundation and let them read from the old classics, just like the Stoics and the Greeks. That's what you learn in philosophy the first few years. There's others that you need to learn: Zig Ziglar, some Elmer Wheeler, some real classic gentlemen of the world of integrity. If you haven't suffered, if you haven't, been through the dumps, and you're not going to grow. It doesn't matter. And if you're afraid of growing and you're afraid of pain, get out of the sales world. You got to work it, and don't sugarcoat it. It's the way it is. Same thing with, again, I bring to bear, an analogy, my lifting world. I go, not tonight so much, but some days when I have like a maximum squat, I've done it before, or I'm close to doing it, like it's in the 400s. I'm concerned. I'm a little bit scared. If you don't have that, a little bit of that fear of that, is that you're not, it doesn't mean enough to you. It's not meaningful to you. So I want to see who really wants it, and the Marines, the SEALs, when they're in the water and they're about to drown, and they're in the cold, icy water, and they keep you there for like, I don't know, 24 hours or 20 hours. I don't know. They're put to the test. It's not the strongest or the most fit that wins, is the one who really wants it and is willing to give himself for the others, right? So character, you don't become a character, you get character. Big difference, right? So life is rough, and you got to get strong, spiritually, existentially, psychologically, physically, and otherwise. So I always try to encourage the young ones: don't be afraid. Give it all you got. You're going to come out of it winning. It's a mistake if you don't consider it a learn.
Very interesting, Denny. I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you notice again struggling reps, because currently you're working with the coachable ones, there's some of the reps that are already in a certain level of understanding and they have the skill sets. But from your past experiences, obviously it's a diverse team of younger sellers who are just new to the game. You're not necessarily looking for skill sets that they never actually got a chance to build, but you're looking at their character and their resilience. There we go, their heart. You put them, I love that. You put them under pressure out of love to see if they come out of it. And if they do, you help them, build that skill set they need to be successful. Did I get it correctly?
Bang on.
All right. So my last question is relevant to this. So part of getting better is to practice and is to practice as much as you can to get punched in the face and stand up again and do it again and do it again and do it again. And then if they're lucky, they have a great coach like yourself who help them adjust those problems. Now you have the value, now you have the guts, now you are doing it, now adjust it this way and that way. What are some of the reason why companies don't do practice and offer enough practice to their reps? And how should we fix this moving forward with everything is happening in the world of sales?
I remember my dad, when I got married to my first wife in 1992. He started going to high school in the evening to learn Spanish, because he was the father-in-law and he wanted to speak Spanish with his daughter-in-law. But I remember in the mid 70s to late 70s, when I was in high school, there was no such thing as continuing education in universities.
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody has even in French, it's called permanent education.
Mm-hmm.
education permanente, which really means cyclical,
No ending.
ongoing, never ending, resources of information and core structures and information and data that's being shared that you need to update yourself on. Like there's an upgrade on the course, there's an upgrade. I just had my Android phone update and upgrade today, right? And it's everybody's, there's always accumulation of data. So now continuing education is a thing. It's a big thing, and it's a big money maker and money grabber for a lot of universities who are not finance. And I know I'm digressing from sales per se, but the point is to have ongoing, continuing education. And because the reps need this, because I look at the reps as the athletes of a team, they are the football team. You have a coach, you have a manager, you have physios, you have physical prep guys, you have all kinds of people on the roster. But ultimately, who's on the field are the players in the ice, wherever it is. So to always sharpen up yourself is a true measurement of seeking excellence, you know, um, with people. Not perfection, excellence. Excellence should be the goal because excellence is reachable. Perfection is never, right? And continuing education. So, where the problem is in the sales world? There's the VP here, there's the reps here, and there's a manager in between. A poor manager is always squeezed doing 50,000 things. He never have enough time to do everything. So what becomes a priority? Whatever the boss says. So if a boss is smart, he'll say, you take care of your baby, you run your thing, take care of those people, take care of your staff, they'll take care of your customers. It's a duplication effect. So it starts with the vision of the VP. Really, it starts with the vision of growth mindset that they want to implement and put together this systematic culture of ongoing support, culture of nurturing, and usually you'll have and even give them stock options. I heard this story this morning from this very wealthy gentleman that was kind enough to give me some time. He's got 12 companies. He was homeless 12 years ago, right? He said in his business, it's stores, right? It's a clothing store. It's in the U.S. And if you stay in it for a year, you'll get 0.25% of an option on a stock. And the longer you stay, the more stock you get. Imagine they care about that place. They want to do everything right for the customer. The customer goes in there. Wow, what an experience, right? So there's a journey. So if we do that with our reps and we take care of it, I think they're not caring enough about their reps. And one client of mine, 19 reps I work with, only one is still in employment by that company. They're all gone.
That says a lot about the culture.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, in that case, very much so. And so I find that sometimes I get to be the weeder out. I weed out those who are undesirable or not likely to achieve, just by mere virtue of trying to help them. But my job becomes difficult and unpleasant. It's like if I'm with a hockey team and we're all on the ice, and you have the goalie is in the dressing room stretching himself, but he's not on the ice to play, the whole team is not there. Quality is so much more important than quantity in this world now. I think so.
You just open another can of worms for another conversation, and we're gonna have a lot of conversations, together in the future. But I wanted to just mention on something, and then we wrap it up because we started this show talking about adding value, regardless of what I'm doing or what I'm selling, just to add some value to those frontline managers who don't have the support of their leadership. Very hard, I understand. Maybe it's better to look for another gig. But not everybody has that luxury. We still have to, pay our bills. We still have responsibilities. So for the time being that you're with the company, your responsibilities are not going to change. You always have, increasing quota and more responsibilities, and the boss is still not supporting. If they don't have access to a tool like Sell Me the Spend to run practice session at scale or give coaching, and They still have their team, they still have to run the show. What would be the one of the best exercises they could do today to at least give enough to their reps so they could be successful and at least sustain their position?
Maybe do the exercise together, and pick up three or four kind of case situations that they're likely to encounter, and just practice it and craft narratives on an email, practice on the phone, do back and forth role playing. You receive a speech. You got to practice the speech before you go and talk. You're not going to just take the piece of paper and go on stage, unless you have an amazing speechwriter, like the president of the United States has a speechwriter. But he will still scan it before he goes on stage. But the idea is to practice. Um, so yeah, two, three case scenarios and practice that. Practice makes good. Doesn't make perfect. Practice makes good. It makes better. And like I learned from one of my partners, better is better.
Better is better. All right, like we can, finish it on this high note. Better is better. And look, Denny, I appreciate you. I always enjoyed, chatting with you, and thank you very much for taking the time. Again, if someone wants to reach out, how should they reach out to you?
Well, my name I think is in the screen there, so just look for that on LinkedIn and look for that good-looking bearded guy, and you know connect, and I'll have a chat, talk with you if you have issues. Anybody who has issues or questions, I'm always interested in having conversation with people who care and want to get ahead.
Awesome, man. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this show, and see you soon. Bye for now.